Hello and good vibes. I'm Angelina, and this is your Good Morning Minute. I want to welcome you back to Flowers Are Red 30 Days of Seeing Beyond the Box. Throughout this series, we've been exploring how God transforms our lives by changing the way we see ourselves, others, and the world around us. Every day, we've challenged a different box, our assumptions, our fears, our labels, and our perspectives. Today, we're continuing that journey through conversation. I'm excited to introduce someone whose story reminds us that every person has experiences that shape who they are. And often, the greatest lessons come when we're willing to look beyond what's immediately visible. So I want everyone to please join me in welcoming Isaiah. Isaiah, hello, welcome to the show.
What's going on? Hope everybody's doing well today. Angelina, thank you so much for this opportunity. I am so glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to get to know you a little bit better. Let's start with an icebreaker question I like to ask my guests when they're on the show. When you hear the phrase flowers are red, what comes to mind?
The first thing that comes to mind is a rose. They represent love, and love is God, and God is Jesus, and He showed His ultimate sacrifice through His love. So that's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Wonderful. And so I like to reference this song. It's actually a song called
Yeah.
Flowers Are Red, and it's an older song, and I was turned on to it by a mentor that I speak with on a monthly basis. And in our conversation, he just really opened my eyes to
Yeah.
people can speak something into us that we take as a truth,
Mm.
but it's not until we allow God to come into our lives to really shape what the truth is. And
Yeah.
so, stepping out of boxes is definitely something that I've been working on myself. So I'm glad to hear your story. And so
Yeah.
before we start, yeah, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do.
100%. So I am so grateful to be here. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Isaiah Grant. I am a beloved son of God. I love Jesus. I follow him. I am married. We have no kids. I love my wife, Melanie. She is absolutely incredible. Over the last year or so, I've had the pleasure of leading a congregation here in Tampa, Florida. I own three businesses that do very well. Each of them, I work under about 6 hours per week here in each of the businesses. One in restoration, one that is business consulting, helping consultants and authors and business owners write best-selling books and turning it into a predictable client acquisition system here. And then the third is a real estate portfolio where we manage that. So it's really incredible. God has done amazing work. I've gone from being homeless in my life to owning a portfolio of homes. I've gone from being totally broke and having no money to being very fortunate. And just like it says in the book of Ecclesiastes, right? I've learned to be content. Like, just, yeah, so, or Paul rather said, I learned to be content in every situation that I'm in. So it is really cool. Just a little bit about my story, but I grew up in a single parent household, low income. My dad, unfortunately, was deported back to Trinidad. My mom dealt with heart disease, kidney issues, diabetes. And when I was a kid, a lot of my life felt like I was plagued with rejection and betrayal. I felt abandonment from my dad. My mom, she was just, physically ill and just could not deal with a lot of the stuff of being the mother that I personally needed, but she did the best she could. Like she was there physically, but present. When you're sick, in and out of the hospital, right? A phone call, her checking up on me meant a lot, but you're not able to do things like play basketball with your mother or go on a walk like you used to. So I had a lot of what I would call stepping into being a husband son. And she recently passed away about a year and some change ago. And it's been a journey of processing that. And it's been a very healing journey of knowing that God healed her, gave her a brand new body. And we got to do a ceremony right before we actually got married. She passed April 1st. And then we got unofficially married in the hospital where the nurses decorated her hospital room, got non-alcoholic champagne and cupcakes. We celebrated, and I remember asking her to squeeze my hand. Hey, did you enjoy it? And then 11 days later, we actually got married, and she had said yes when she squeezed my hand. So, but more of the story. young kid, grew up single parent mom. I learned how to, I would consider sell just like you would need to in business, selling pencils, erasers, candies, CDs, DVDs. And I remember going from $1 a day to $10 days, $100 days, and I'm in like fourth, fifth grade trying to make money so I can have breakfast and lunch. And my friends were like, they loved it. They're like, how can I do this? I taught them how to do it, made a commission off of it. And I'm like, whoa, this is cool. And so I learned entrepreneurship from an early age, like fourth, fifth grade. And I've taken that. I failed miserably in the start of business, but God is over the last 10 years, we've helped over 600 business owners build best-selling books and grow to 6 to 7 figures. Real estate grew that to 2 million portfolio and have a restoration business that is doing really well as well. So it's pretty cool. And as a pastor, I get to share the gospel while doing all of that stuff. And the secret sauce that I found behind it is the structure that every man and woman must have. Genesis 1 talks about structure. Most people think it's about creation, which it is. But here's the cool part. The Lord took strategy, turned it into a structure, aka a system. The Alpha was creating the heavens and the earth. The Omega was resting on the seventh day. And in between it, he created critical milestones of creating land and water, the sea, basically the sky and the sea. He created time, he created vegetation, and then he created animals, and lastly, human beings. So everything we needed as a human being, he created before we ever needed it. That's the God we serve. And number two, he did everything in an order, a structure and order. And imagine taking that concept of this alpha and omega and milestones and stages and doing that within your business and training and equipping other people. That is where you can buy back your time. And I'm not promising that you'll work 6 hours a week like I do in your businesses, but it is when you get to a point where you have great structure, great systems, automation, you can delegate to people and they can do a lot of the heavy lifting for you in the day to day of it. And that's my journey at a high level.
Man, I mean, in a nutshell, that is just wow. But I also find it so fascinating how God starts to really strengthen the skills that you need. And you're talking about structure, you're talking about Genesis, giving you the things that you need before you even knew you needed it. So, being a
Yeah.
young entrepreneur, right? You're doing the pencils and the erasers and those things.
Yeah.
I mean, you're building
Yeah.
that sales mindset and the
Yeah.
skills before you even recognize that you were going to need that in your adult life. And I think that's beautiful. Um, but I'd kind of like to peel it back a little bit and really
Yeah.
kind of walk through. I'm sure there was moments in your life where there were assumptions about yourself that you had to
Mm.
change before
Ooh.
you could even step into the life you've created. And I'd like to know what that was like for you. Maybe, what were some of those assumptions that
Yeah.
you had about yourself that you had to really let God heal you from?
Oh, 100%. So I'll tell you this, my entire life, I had talked about being plagued with rejection, betrayal, but also it was the greatest opportunity for me. And I'll give an example back to biblical standpoint. When Jesus kisses Judas or Judas kisses Jesus, he says, "Come and do what you came to do." And he calls him friend. And then when Peter says that I will follow you and I'll never deny you, I'll never reject you, right? Paraphrasing here.
Mhm.
He calls him Satan, get behind me, Satan. And so the reality is this: Jesus knew something very powerful, that rejection will propel you into your destiny. And so for me, the challenge with rejection when I was young, I knew of God. I grew up in the church. My mom loved Jesus. I knew of God, but didn't really know him. And so when I experienced rejection, I would feel these feelings of I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I have to work harder. And so my identity became warped in my performance. And so that looked like, hey, trying to earn love when it came to playing basketball, trying to be the best player in basketball, when it came to schooling, trying to be the best student. And there's nothing wrong with doing well, but it can't define who you are. And so for me, when I lost my dad when he got deported, that was a moment for me where I'm like, I must have not been good enough in my head that my dad would stay here. Or the second one was, hey, even though he got deported, he didn't try hard enough to come back to the States. Wasn't me. And so these are the lies that you have to walk through. And here's what I learned: your identity will get warped into something not of Jesus when you have unforgiveness. So, what I've spent the last 3 to 4 years on is forgiving my dad, my mom, every person who's ever hurt me. Because here's what unforgiveness does: is it creates a distorted lens about the character of God. And when you don't see God in the right image as your father, as your mother, the creator of all creation, you can't see yourself the way he sees you. And so then when you have a distorted view of yourself, you then have a distorted view of other people. And so if I see that I'm only good, I'm only loved when I'm doing well, what happens when you lose a business? What happens when you lose the opportunity to be an athlete? And I can tell you, I've experienced all of that. Eighth grade, I got diagnosed with diabetes. In a moment, in a matter of a month, I was in the hospital. I thought I was going to die in eighth grade. And I spent the next 4 years learning more about Christ, going deeper in intimacy with him. I got a nutritionist, a personal trainer, and through the grace of God, got rid of diabetes. And so my health was impacted. What happens when you go homeless, which I've been? I lived in a U-Haul truck at a point when my mom had a heart attack during Thanksgiving. I'm in a U-Haul truck during Thanksgiving, cards, credit cards maxed out, didn't know what I was going to do. But that defining moment helped me realize that God was my provider. So you went from being my healer to my provider. And then when you go to college, from high school to college, you're no longer the smartest student in the classroom. Now you got people with 4.5s. You didn't even know that you could break the scale past 4.0. They got GPAs higher than a normal GPA, and you're no longer the smarter in the room. How do you see yourself? So one of the things that I've learned is I have to forgive the people that have hurt me so that I can have a restoration of view of God's character, how he perceives me and other people. And those are just some three examples in my life of the transition from high school to college, being
Yeah.
homeless, yeah, my dad getting deported, being in corporate America at a point where I worked in corporate America, aerospace engineering for 8 years, absolutely hated the job, was burnt out, but they paid for my master's degree, which was a blessing, was mistreated, and did very well, and unfortunately was let go. And when I was let go, that was the greatest opportunity. It propelled me into my company that had been growing for years, that was already doing well. I was making just as much in my business than I was in the day job. And when I got let go, I was able to double the business through the grace of God, and then actually start a new one in real estate. And so that closed door, what I realized from rejection and betrayal, became the greatest propeller into my destiny.
Man, I love that story. And it is a true, depiction of allowing God, like totally surrendering to God and allowing him and trusting in him and allowing him to just let you know that his plan is for you is to prosper you, right? Because that's what
Amen.
it says, right? So, I mean, and he's showing me that, and I love it.
Yeah.
And as you're walking through those moments where you are having to tell yourself, no, this is not truth. God is truth, and this is the light
Yeah.
that he's showing me. You also mentioned, some of that unforgiveness was related
Yeah.
to like your mom or your dad or, certain situations that you fell into. And what I've come to realize that has impacted me deeply is like everybody has a story that they come
Yeah.
from.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, as you're walking through that forgiveness, and you're transforming yourself and you're allowing God to minister to you in your heart. I mean, what did what has God taught you about
Yeah.
compassion in all of that?
100%. So I'll say this here is that number one, we live in a broken world.
Mm,
And number two, broken people are hurt people. And if they're not healed, they're going to project that onto you. And
mhm,
so what ends up happening is I had to forgive my dad for be like allowing himself to get deported, getting into legal activities he shouldn't have gotten into, and then getting arrested and getting deported. And then I had to forgive my mom for getting sick, even though it wasn't her fault. And these things created this idea that I was unlovable. And as I processed that, because here's how forgiveness works, we usually think that I forgive the person who hurt me. And that's critical. That's only one of the four things you have to do. You forgive the person who hurt you, and then you forgive God. Like you have to be real with yourself. When your mom has heart disease and diabetes and she gets her big toe amputated when you're like 7, 8 years old, and the quality of having a mom, you start to resent God. And a lot of us want to lie to ourselves. Oh, no, I would never be mad at God. But here's the reality: God knows your heart before you even know how to process it. So who am I to lie to God? I have to be real with him. God, I'm upset with you. I'm frustrated. I'm disappointed. I thought things would be different. I thought I would have both of my parents. And just like Jacob, we got to sometimes wrestle with God, right? And so we forgive him. And then number three, we receive his forgiveness, because then a lot of times we have guilt and shame. And now, after we forgive that person who hurt us, we forgive God. We then put the blame on ourselves. So then we have to forgive and release ourselves from that and receive God's forgiveness. And then the fourth step is replacing the old lie with God's truth, so
Mm.
that we can start to create a new routine of our belief system. Because a lot of times, if you feel like you know the Bible inside and out up here, but right here you struggle so much to believe it, it's usually hidden because of unforgiveness. Our
Mm.
heart is like a garden, the way I process it. And it says this biblically. James or John 15 talks about it. And John 15 talks about, remain in me, I shall remain in you. Apart from me, you can do nothing. Our heart is just like a garden. We have to pull out all the dead branches. He says, I prune all the branches that are dead, and I prune the ones that are fruitful so that they may become more fruitful. And because one bad branch could kill an entire garden, that is just how unforgiveness works. And so for me, I forgave my dad, I forgave my mother, I forgave bullying people who bullied me for being overweight. I forgave, being bullied during basketball season in high school. Right. I forgave myself for eating poorly and at a point getting diabetes, and he delivered me from it. Like, I will tell you, unforgiveness causes sickness. And I think legitimately, what I did not know, that the root of my diabetes was because I was eating unhealthy, because I was holding trauma and resentment from what I went through. And God healed me from it. And that's how Jesus works. The power of forgiveness will set you free. He says the truth will set you free. And when you walk in truth, you know who you are, that I'm a beloved son. I'm not a pastor. I'm a beloved son who pastors. So we change our noun to beloved son or daughter, and our actions to the stewardship that he calls us to.
That is so beautiful and it's so powerful too. And when you really can, I think that too, allow
Yeah.
yourself to accept the forgiveness because it's already there, right? God's already died. He died. Jesus died on the cross for
Out
us.
on the cross, resurrected and ascended. Praise God.
And in that moment,
Yeah.
forgiveness was given, right? But we do, shame and guilt is that
Mhm.
wall that keeps us from
Yeah.
wanting to accept it. So I love how you've kind of walked us through what forgiveness looks like. And it really is for you. It's the
Yeah.
freedom, right? It's to release you from the shackles and to be free. And
That's
that way you
it.
start walking into your identity
Yeah.
with God for sure. And I love how you're saying that because every story includes moments where we needed God. And in your story, I see so much of that. I needed God in this moment and he showed up and the faithfulness through your journey. Where did you see God in your like hardest season really show up for you?
Oh, okay. Man, I had a lot of hard seasons.
I
So
bet.
a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot. So if I would say my hardest season, I would say the first one that came to mind was when my mom was in the hospital. I backtrack. So I get a phone call. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm at University of Connecticut. I'm in my dorm room.
Mhm.
And it's unfortunate. You get a phone call from somebody. And usually when something's bad, sometimes you just gotta get straight to the point. You can't beat around the bush. And I'm like, hey, what's going on? They're like crying. I'm like 4 o'clock in the morning. He's like, your mom. I'm like, okay, you're gonna have to tell me what's wrong. You're like postponing this, just get to the point. So, oh, she had a heart attack. I'm like, okay. well, you're gonna have to tell me is she dead or alive? I'm like, well, I gotta prove prove everything out of you. You gotta tell me what's going on. So she had a heart attack. She actually did die, and then they brought her back to life through CPR on the third one. And typically with CPR, when you get to your third one, then it's done. They're not going to do it because they don't want to totally damage you, turn you into a vegetable. So on the third one, that was the last one, and it brought her back to life. And through the grace of God, I get there in about an hour, 20 minutes to the hospital. And simultaneously, college is just ending. And it was so many transitions that were happening. College was ending for that semester. And then number two, we were in transition of moving from one city to the next. And so all of our stuff was in a U-Haul truck. And I remember not having, and then also too, while she's in the hospital, everything's in U-Haul truck. We didn't get approved for the new apartment yet. So that was a waiting period of weeks. And so I went from people's house to house to staying in the U-Haul truck. And now what should have been approved, the apartment should have been approved weeks prior, it wasn't. And so now we had to spend way more money than ever expected for a U-Haul truck. And I just remember going through, hey, if my mom dies, I have no place to stay. I already don't have a dad. Why would God totally abandon me like this?
Mhm.
And so I remember just praying. And one of my aunts at the time, I remember she brought me in. I sat down at her table. It was just me and her, and she encouraged me. She told me that what God is doing in your life, if He allows you to go through this, He can trust you. And that was the biggest thing, is that God can trust me with some of the greatest burdens because my trust is in Him. And that's the hard part about it. You think about it, not everybody goes through hard stuff, but sometimes people go through really, really hard stuff. And some of them don't make it out, but the ones who do make it out are the ones who put their trust in the Lord. Because here's the thing, if you put your trust in the Lord, He will never go void. And the reality is, if He went void, it would make Him a liar, and He's not a liar. And
Mhm.
that's the level of confidence we have to have in our Father. So, long story short, we end up getting the apartment. The U-Haul actually forgave us for that debt, which was amazing. I still don't even know how for that. It doesn't even make sense. And then number three, was like we got help. People actually helped us move in. And then I got to see my mom, and she recovered for many years until she unfortunately passed last year. That was like over 8 years ago that happened, 8 to 10 years ago. So maybe actually 10 years, but that was probably the hardest moment because there were so many transitions at once. Her health, getting a new apartment, getting out of college, down to being in a U-Haul truck. And I just felt this overwhelm of like, hey, I don't even like, God, why do you even have me alive? Like, this is crazy. And I remember even the fourth thing that was the crazy part about this, I was taking history class and wrote an 8 to 10 page paper for a history class, turned my paper in, and my teacher said she lost my paper. And I was like, how did you lose my paper? She was like, it was on my desk. And I remember her asking me in the hard moment, she was like, what do you want for the grade? And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, that doesn't make sense. I don't know
Yeah.
why you're asking me that. I mean, whatever you believe is appropriate. She said, choose wisely. And I was like, an A. And I walked out, and that's actually what she gave me. And it was crazy. Like, God did some amazing stuff, like in that season. And I still don't even understand, can wrap my head around it, of how He allowed for me to go through that to refine my faith and to test me and put me through the fire, to know that He's my provider, He's our healer, that He's my protector and my refuge.
I love that. And I mean, I get the chill bumps of knowing like, he's
Yeah.
working and just the miracle and the moments, it's
That's great.
beautiful. It is so beautiful. And, my condolences for losing your mother.
Thank you.
That's hard. I'm 50 and I lost my mother when I was 28 years old
Wow.
due to heart failure. And,
I'm sorry.
similar situation. Very young when she had her first heart attack, but open heart surgeries. She went through
Yeah,
them all.
legit. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Well, I was
very
gonna say you look like you're 30, so you're doing well.
like, yes, keep going. But thank you. I
Uh,
appreciate that.
yeah,
Yeah, so I mean, I can kind of understand, what that might have looked like for you,
yeah.
with your mother. Um, but let's shift a little bit because now you're leading in so many capacities, in so many different ways. And I'm so curious to understand like how or what does Christ-centered leadership look like to you?
Oh, wow, that's such a great question. All
Yeah.
right, so I'm gonna break it down this way. Number one, when it comes to leadership, you must be led by Christ first. Then you must lead yourself. Then you can lead one person, which should be your spouse, and eventually group, which is your kids and your family. And then once you lead groups, you can lead an organization. And once you lead an organization, you can lead multiple organizations. And I call that the stage, the journey of leadership. And we see that happen through David, King David in the Bible, right? Anointed at 15, right? First Samuel, and he's anointed at 15 years old. And it takes about 16 years by the age of 30, 31 for him to be anointed king. And so leadership is difficult. And it all starts by hearing the Lord every single day, his vision, and how we respond through obedience and stewardship is what we do today. And so we should never idolize the outcome. What we should do is always do what he says today, which is prioritizing, implementing world class systems. And so here's the best part about what that looks like. We were talking about earlier, Genesis 1. He gives us an order, number one, and then he gives us structure. If you apply what we see in Genesis 1, it'll change your life and change your leadership. So he takes his vision, which he wants to create all of man, create everything. He's the creator of all creation. He takes that vision and he turns it into a strategy. He says, in 7 days, I'm going to create everything. And then he takes the strategy and he turns it into an engine, a system that's replicatable, even to like this day by human beings. And so it starts with the Alpha, which was he created the heavens and the earth, and the Omega, which was resting on the seventh day. In between, he created milestones. And these milestones were separating land and sea, the sky, right, and water, as well, sky and the ground. And then he also created time, he created vegetation, he created animals, and then he created man. So he created everything man needed before they even were created. And then he says, we created in our image. Our shows that the Trinity existed on page one. So not only did he provide everything you needed before you needed, and then he says he took a look, he looked at his creation and blessed it. And the word bless means that he gave honor to it. So if you are given honor and blessing and approval before you were created, that means that we were given purpose way in advance, which he says, be fruitful, multiply, reign and subdue, attend to the soil. And so as a leader, what's critical is to have structure and order. If I were to put that in two words, structure and the word and and order is three words, but structure and order is what's critical as a leader. And so the ability to multiply, to reproduce your leadership and discipleship, really God's leadership, is your ability to take a vision, to strategize it, convert it into an engine, which I call a compilation of systems, like we talked about, seven critical systems, and then building playbooks around them, and then delegating to automation and a person will help you buy back your time. And that's why in all of the businesses, I'm able to work under 6 hours a week. And it's absolutely incredible because the last 3 years, really 4 years, I did ministry. In my whole life, I did ministry for free. Not even 3 or 4 years. My whole life, I did ministry for free until this year as a lead pastor. And so the best part is I'm able to run all of these businesses while doing ministry full time because I've created capacity through systems, through delegation of people, and automation.
Hmm. And honestly, I mean that's why we're here, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is beautiful because even when God was walking with the disciples in their journey, like
Yeah.
there was always something that he knew was going to be the provision for their journey,
Always.
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 But the main mission was discipleship,
You
was
got it.
bringing
Matthew
people.
28.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. So I think that's beautiful because if we could all get there as a society, as a world, like, can you just imagine, just that, wow, just
You'd be
all the stuff.
rejoicing in heaven.
Yeah,
You'd be,
absolutely.
yes.
Yes, absolutely. So I love this, and I love how you really structured that to bring it to
Yeah.
an understanding of what this could look like if you would allow the order, the system and order to
Yeah.
work, for you. So I think that's beautiful. I
100.
know, sorry, I know that your journey definitely had to give you a shift in perspective, somewhere along the way. I know for me, my journey has done that. And so I'm going to ask you to finish a question. And there's going to be two questions. So I'm going to start it off and I want you to kind of finish it for me.
Of course. Of course.
Uh, so I used to think,
That my identity and worth was in my performance.
okay, but now God has taught me.
That I am his beloved son through his death, resurrection, and ascension.
I love that. And it's beautiful because if anybody walks away from our conversation today, what is it that you want them to hear from you?
That you are already a beloved son or daughter through his works. And you have the ability to forgive the people that have tremendously hurt you so that you can walk into the fulfillment and the fullness of what God's created you to be.
Mm, beautiful. And so, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, Isaiah, where would they go? What kind of projects do you have coming up? Let us know.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook at Isaiah Grant. You can also go to kingdomimpact.co/automated-CEO for the free diagnostic tool for your business. If you have a consulting, coaching, business, or you're a speaker, author, we teach you how to write a guaranteed bestseller and use it to get predictable clients for your business. So, with much love, you guys are incredible. And Angelina, I'm so grateful for you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, before I let you go and I do my outro,
Yeah, yeah,
I
sure.
do want to ask you this one last question. What's one nugget of inspiration or just hope that you can leave before we say goodbye to our audience?
Yes, everything you need, you already have. And what that looks like is just do not quit. Your breakthrough is on the side of your consistency and your structure. Never settle your standards to accommodate a person. I'll give you this example. If you are a fish in a pond, do not shrink to fit your environment. Continue to grow until you outgrow that environment so that you can go into a new one.
Love it. Love it. And that's great because I often have said you have everything that you need to create the life you desire. And, automatically people want to go to, well, I'm not born rich or I'm not born with all of these
Neither was
material.
I.
Yeah, and I'm like, no, you're not, but
Yeah,
you have it in terms of desire, motivation, to do better. So
yeah,
that is something that is given to everybody. So I love that, Isaiah. I loved getting to know you. Your story is so impactful and just so inspiring. I
thank
mean,
you. It's all him.
yes, it is,
All he's the one.
and allowing yourself to realize that, right? To totally surrender to God and say, you're the reason I'm able to do all these things. And that's hard because people want to take control of everything in their life because sometimes the surrender
Mm.
is a long journey, but
Ooh, yeah.
not in God's eyes, right? But in our time, in the way we measure time anyway. So,
Agree. He cares more about who you become more than what you achieve. So if
mhm.
you focus on today's obedience, God is in control of the outcome and he's going to give it to you.
Amen. Well, I want to say thank you so much for being a part of the show. What a beautiful conversation. And thank you for sharing your story, but also your heart with us. One of the things I've learned throughout this Flowers Are Red journey is that every person we meet has a story that is still being written. When we are willing to look beyond assumptions, labels, and first impressions, we often discover God's fingerprints in places we never expected. I hope today's conversation encouraged you to see yourself with a little more grace, others with a little more compassion, and God with a little more wonder. If this conversation encouraged you, would you do me a favor? Share it with someone who may need this reminder today. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode of A Good Morning Minute with Angelina. I'd also love to hear from you. What's one perspective shift from today's conversation that's staying with you? Leave a comment below or connect with me on social media. I'd love to continue the conversation. I'll leave you with one final thought, my friends. Who might God be inviting you to see differently this week? Maybe it's someone you've misunderstood. Maybe it's someone you've judged too quickly. Or maybe it's yourself. Remember, friends, every person has a story. Every story matters, and every story is one God can redeem. Until next time, I'm Angelina, your life coach, sending you much love, much peace, many blessings.